Revenge films.
My name is Kevin Smith. I live with my wife, Karen, and our 4-year-old daughter, Ashley. We're a happy family of 3. I was an average salaryman working at a normal company, but there was one dream that I had, and that was to start my own business and to become a prep school teacher for young children to help set them up for a bright future ahead. When I was a college student, I was working part-time as a prep school teacher, and I remember feeling back then that I wanted to do this job in the future. I felt a lot of purpose and passion in it. However, when I graduated from college, I got a job at a normal company, and I met my wife soon after that. Once we got married, we gave birth to our daughter, Ashley, and my life changed. I was so overwhelmed with trying to support our current lifestyle that I wasn't able to save up the money I needed to start my own business. But even so, in order to support my family that I loved so much, I didn't think it was such a struggle to continue working at my company, as long as it meant that my family was happy. That's how much I treasured my wife and my daughter. Ever since I met her, my wife Karen was a free spirit. That was part of what I loved about her, but sometimes it was frustrating. Even though she was a full-time housewife, she would leave the care of our daughter and the chores around the house completely to me, and she would often go out by herself to have fun. But to be fair, I got married to my wife knowing this about her personality, and so I didn't really feel like complaining about it in particular. However, recently, I was starting to become bothered by the fact that my wife would go to hang out with her friends at night, but then she wouldn't come home until the morning of the next day. And because of that, I was starting to feel a little bit frustrated. My wife would come home the next day in the morning without saying a word to me. She would walk past me as I was getting our daughter prepared for her preschool. She would ignore both our daughter and me and then go straight to the bedroom and fall asleep. This happened a number of times, and I finally reached my limit of patience. It all peaked one day when my wife had come home in the morning from going out with her friends the night before. Our daughter was so happy to see her that she said,
"Mommy!"
and ran towards her, but then Ashley simply said,
"I'm sleepy, so go over there and don't bother me."
And then she took both hands and pushed our daughter. When she was pushed, our daughter fell over and hit her head on the ground, and she started crying. I immediately ran over and grabbed Ashley, and I couldn't believe it. With Ashley in my arms, my daily frustrations exploded, and without thinking, I said, "What the hell are you doing? Not only are you coming home in the morning, you pushed your daughter. You're the worst! How could you do that?" And I raised my voice. But then my wife yelled back at me,
"What's so wrong with coming home in the morning? If I can't live my life freely, then there's no point in living. Just leave me alone."
And then she stormed off and locked herself into the bedroom. After the fact, I felt like I had maybe said too much and snapped at her, and I regretted it, so I came up with a plan to make up with my wife. I knew that our wedding anniversary was coming up that weekend, so I asked my parents to look after our daughter, and I planned a dinner date for the 2 of us for the first time in a while. On the day of our wedding anniversary, I had already made the dinner reservations and prepared the whole evening, so I worked really hard to make sure I could leave work on time. But then, as I was getting ready to leave work, I received a message from my wife that said,
"Hey, I actually have plans tonight, so can we reschedule dinner to another day?"
I asked her if those were such important plans that she needed to prioritize them over our wedding anniversary date. But then she said that they were important plans and she couldn't move them. In that case, I thought I had no choice, so I canceled the reservation for the restaurant that evening. I was a little bit frustrated that she was going to cancel so last minute on the night of our wedding anniversary, But I also didn't want to get into a fight with her on the day of our wedding anniversary, so I decided to forgive her. I had a quick change of mood, and on my way home from work, I decided to go buy my wife an anniversary gift. I knew that my wife was really into photography lately, so I went to an electronics store and I got her a really nice brand new camera. I was looking forward to seeing how happy my wife would be, and with the camera in hand, I walked out of the electronics shop. But it was at that very moment, up ahead on the sidewalk next to the train station, I saw my wife. But then, standing next to her was a guy that I had never seen before. And that moment, I suspected my wife of having an affair. And so I decided to try following the two of them. As I hid myself and walked behind the two of them, to my shock, they arrived right in front of a hotel. And then they held hands and went inside. I decided to wait outside. 2 hours later, they walked out of the hotel together. So I grabbed the camera that I had just bought, and I took photos of the two of them. With this, I now had evidence of their affair. But I was so devastated that I wasn't able to think about anything for a while. When I got home, I started thinking about what to do after this. That day, I had the day off work because I had so many leave days piled up. I went to go pick up my daughter from preschool. My daughter said that she wanted to play out in the schoolyard with one of her good friends. I said sure, and as I was sitting by the school park watching the two of them from the side, my daughter's friend's father came over to talk to me. However, when I looked up at his face, I realized that this was the man that my wife was cheating on me with. I was so shocked that I froze on the spot. But then, that man's wife walked up right behind him. The two of them were looking at our children having fun together, and then the man said, "Thank you very much for letting our daughter play with your daughter all the time," with a smile on his face. I didn't want my wife's boyfriend to be suspicious of me, so I carried on the conversation naturally, and I asked him where he worked. I couldn't believe that my wife was having an affair with one of her daughter's friend's parents. She was the worst. My anger towards my wife and her boyfriend were reaching its peak, and I decided that I was going to confront my wife with the evidence and serve her the divorce papers. That night, I told my wife that I had a present for her, and I handed her the brand new camera. Then my wife was thrilled, and she said,
I'm so happy. I've wanted this camera forever. Thank you.
And she grabbed the camera from me. So then I told her that I took a few photos on it for her and to check the camera screen. My wife seemed excited as she turned the camera on and flipped on the screen, but then at that moment she turned pale and froze. That's also a gift from me. I also brought the divorce papers, so you better sign them. When I said that, my wife started crying and said,
I'm really sorry. I just got a little bit carried away. That's not how I really feel. Please forgive me.
But I ignored my wife, and I started talking to her about the settlement fee and the custody of our child. But then my wife angrily said,
I'm going to be raising Ashley. I'll take full custody of her.
Even though up until now she had completely left the care of our daughter in my hands, all of a sudden Karen was saying that she wanted full custody of Ashley. And I knew right then and there that it was because she was after the child support fees. Then my wife raised her voice and said,
I'm going to be taking Ashley with me when I leave this house.
Because my wife was yelling, Ashley, who should have been sleeping in her bedroom, woke up and came out into the living room. Oh, Ashley, I'm sorry. Did we wake you up? When I said that, Ashley started crying and she said,
I want to be with Daddy. I don't want to go with Mommy.
So then I turned to my wife and simply said, You heard her. That's that. And then I took Ashley back to her bedroom and I put her back to sleep. From there, I started preparing for the divorce. I hired a lawyer, lined up all the evidence, and decided I was going to collect a settlement fee from my ex-wife. Of course, I was planning on collecting a settlement fee from her boyfriend as well, but I wanted to be considerate of his wife. If I sent all of the details straight to their house, she might be so shocked that she would collapse. So I decided to send it to his office first. When her boyfriend saw the notice, he immediately contacted my lawyer and asked for my contact information. And then I received a direct phone call from him, and he apologized over and over again. And then he begged me, "Please don't tell my family, anything but my family." But after destroying my household, there was no way that I was going to let him have his way so easily, so I told him that he better tell his own wife with his own mouth. And then I hung up the phone. But of course, I already knew that there was no way he was going to confess to his own wife that he was cheating on her. I could see that from a mile away. However, because I was suing him for a very high settlement fee, it was only a matter of time before she was going to find out. All I had to do was wait for the settlement fee to be deposited into my account, and then immediately after that, my divorce from my ex-wife went through, and I also reported everything to my former in-laws. Karen's parents were mortified, and they cried to me, begging me to not take custody of their granddaughter away from them. But that was when I fully exposed my ex-wife, that she hadn't been doing anything for years to look after Ashley, and that my daughter said herself that she wanted to be with me. When they heard all of that, they couldn't say anything back to me. Of course, I received full custody of our daughter, and not only did Karen lose her daughter, but she wasn't going to receive child support fees and had to pay a settlement fee. When all of that was decided, Karen came crying to me, begging me to start over and that she wanted to get back together. But of course, I didn't have any intention of that whatsoever, so I kicked my wife out of the house and I started my new life together with my daughter. With the settlement fee that I received from my ex-wife and her boyfriend, I was able to start my own company, and I was finally able to open up the prep school that I had dreamt about for years. And now that I was a business owner, I was also able to spend a lot more time with my daughter than when I was working for a company. My income also increased, and I also didn't have the money that I was spending on my wife, nor could she spend my money, and so my expenses decreased a lot. Thanks to that, my daughter and I were able to move into a big apartment close to my parents' house. Since we lived near my parents, I was able to get their support in raising Ashley, and I worked hard to make sure that my daughter wasn't going to be sad without a mother. But my parents were also really happy that their son and granddaughter were moving closer to them, and they said that they were happy to help me raise Ashley. As for my ex-wife, after she was kicked out of my house, her relationship with her parents also became worse. She had no choice but to go out and get a job so that she could support herself and pay the settlement fee. She was no longer able to live that free life anymore, and she started to despise her boyfriend. And then I heard that she barged into her boyfriend's house and exposed the affair to his wife, and she made sure that they got a divorce. As it turns out, her boyfriend was trying to hide the fact of the affair from his own wife, and he was trying to settle everything without getting a divorce. But then my ex-wife wasn't going to let that happen, and because she barged into their house, his entire plan was ruined. Of course, his wife was furious, and she took their child and left the house. So he was left with nothing but a big house and the mortgage left on it to pay. My ex-wife and her boyfriend's relationship completely fell apart after that, and the two of them parted ways and ended up living a sad life alone, separately. Every now and then I get messages from my ex-wife asking to get back together. But of course, every single time I say no. According to the rumors, because my wife had been a full-time housewife for years, she wasn't able to keep a job. And I heard that she's somehow getting by hopping from part-time job to part-time job. Since my daughter doesn't say she wants to see her mom, I think it's fine if we become estranged from her like this. From now on, with my daughter and my parents, I want to continue building a happy, positive family together.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.